don't realize who or what you're dealing with. You better know by now, I don't hold back.
I'll admit, I was never much of an anime guy. I don't know why, but it just never really appealed to me. But even though that was the case, Dragon Ball Z, and by extension, Dragon Ball in general really, was always an exception. And getting Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, the newest game in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, it was cause for hype, and I will say that it absolutely lives up and then some. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, DPX here, reviewing today Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Before we get started, you know what to do. Like to subscribe, to hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will just kill you in a fight. Starting off with the good, because this is a fighting game, or more specifically an arena fighter, a very important aspect is obviously the roster, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero knows that damn well, as it has a roster of 182 characters. I'm not kidding, that is insane. And while sure, not everything about that number is necessarily perfect, this game still has 182 playable characters to choose from. Characters all throughout the history of Dragon Ball Z, GT, Kai, Super, you name it. I can't think of a single major Dragon Ball character that is known for fighting that isn't in this game. But to be fair, while I love Dragon Ball Z, I'm not too familiar with the other shows, but to think that this roster will get even bigger with DLC is insane. And the many characters on display are very fun to play too. Even when some characters are clearly better than others, every character is still a lot of fun. For example, in addition to your obvious picks like Goku or Vegeta, I really like to play as Broly, and then I realized that most other people like to play as Broly, and he's like the best character in the game, or at least one of the best. But I also really like to play as Trunks, Piccolo, Vegito, Beerus, Super Buu, Gotenks, Bardock, Hit, Master Roshi, and the list goes on and on and on, and some are way better than others, but they are all a lot of fun. And what makes each character fun is the gameplay. It's so fast and flashy, just like the many Dragon Ball animes. The gameplay has a bit of a steep learning curve, which I'll talk about more a bit later, but overall, it's a lot of fun, and the basics of the gameplay I don't think are that difficult. But regardless, it makes each fight look like a fight straight out of an episode of Dragon Ball. On top of the massive roster of characters and the fun gameplay, there's also a lot of modes. There's normal battle, of course, custom battle, tournament battle, but most notably, episode battle. This is pretty much the story mode, but it's not one big story mode throughout the whole game, but rather individual story modes for certain characters. And the cool thing about these story modes is that they are what-if scenarios. Characters like Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Frieza, and Goku Black all have their own what-if stories that start with the storyline from the show, but then something different happens, you know? One cool thing is that there are branching paths. For some of the stories, there will be a point where the game will give you a choice. Let's say maybe you have the option to team up with another character, or you don't, and the story will actually progress based on your decision. This is nothing new in video games, but I think it's very cool that it's in this game. There's also online mode, as there should be, seeing that this is an arena fighter, and I think it works very well. I did get disconnected at one point, but I was not playing on the greatest connection to begin with, so I won't fault the game for that. Other things I liked, the UI and menus just pop. It's not something I normally talk about because it's usually not something worth talking about, I feel, but in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, every time you hover over a different option on the menu, Goku will teleport to different locations and interact with other characters. It's small, but I love it when games do this. It doesn't kill a game for me if the menus aren't anything worth noting, but it gets more points if they have extra detail like this. I also really like the visual style. I know it's pretty much the same exact visual style from the many Dragon Ball animes, but that's what I like. The cutscenes in the story mode look like they were taken straight out of the anime, and same goes with when you're actually in a fight. I know I briefly mentioned this earlier, but when you're in a fight, it looks like a fight taken straight out of the anime. It's really cool. There is also the music that I think goes really hard. I noticed that many fighting games and many anime games have fire music, so an anime arena fighter, of course, has some fire music. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, simply put, is a treat for Dragon Ball fans. Moving on to the mixed, these are things I could go either way on. First off, I mentioned the large roster of 182, but the roster took some liberties to get to that number. Like, there are a lot of slots on the roster that are just a character but a different form. Like Goku, for example, has like 12 different forms. And these characters can already transform in a fight, so take that for what you will. In addition to the roster taking some liberties to get to such a big number, naturally with such a big roster, there are going to be some characters that are a bit more forgettable than others. Many characters I often forget are in the game. Characters like Yamcha, Gogeta, Goten, or even the androids. I often forget they are in the game, and I shouldn't, because they are pretty important and cool characters. It's in the mixed because it is such a big roster with so many characters to choose from, and so it ultimately cancels out. The other thing I'm mixed on is something that a lot of people online have been complaining about, and that is the difficulty. I'm not complaining that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is too hard, I'm just mentioning that the difficulty could throw some people off. Specifically in the episode battles, the difficulty ramps up. I have no problem admitting that I played the episode battles on easy mode, and while the difficulty certainly lowers when you do that, every now and then there's still like a random fight that'll kick your ass out of nowhere. Like Grade 8 Vegeta is still a bitch. I'm not holding it against the game because ultimately a game being hard and having a steep learning curve isn't a problem, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it in a review for this game.
I don't like where this is going.
Moving on to the bad, there are some small issues. First off, very minor, and it's that a lot of the transitions into the fights take a second to load, and it's like noticeable. Mostly in the episode battles, you get a whole bunch of cutscenes and screenshots with text and all that, and then it transitions into a fight. But when that transition happens, there's a noticeable amount of lag. It's normally not something I would mention, but Dragon Ball Sparking Zero in just about every other aspect is a very polished game, so this did stand out to me. And the other thing is the costumes. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a costumes guy. I really like the costumes for characters in games, but the costumes in this game are forgettable and sort of lame. Like minor changes in the costumes, and some costume changes I didn't even notice the difference. And on top of that, you can't swap between costumes when you play a character. You pretty much have to make a character's alternate costume their default, if that makes sense. It's not a major issue. In fact, this game is actually so good, these issues don't really matter all too much. Just wanted to mention it.
Vegeta, let's do this!
Hand it to me, now!
Alright! I'm Vegeta and Kakarot together. Guess that makes me Vegeta.
Sure, I mentioned some issues with this game, but overall, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is a hell of a fun time to play. Everything from the roster, the individual characters, the gameplay, while difficult, has me, keep coming back. Along with the episode battles and the overall attention to detail in this game, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is well worth the wait for a new Budokai Tenkaichi game. And I'm sure somewhere, Akira Toriyama is smiling, knowing that his property is still churning out a fucking banger of a game. In the end, I'm gonna give Dragon Ball Sparking Zero a 9 out of 10. So that was this review of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I don't know that you can say this is going out a little bit late. The early access version was like over a week ago. But what do you guys think about this game? Do you guys like the game, not like the game? Have you guys played it, not played it? If you guys haven't played it, do you guys want to play it, not want to play it? Anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, or I will just challenge you to a fight and kill you. I forgot what I said at the beginning. I think it was something like that. Bye!